What's up YouTube? This is Dread from the Trinity of Lift bringing you a Noble Knights of the Round Table deck profile. Let's get right into it. Started off, we're gonna have the triple Boars. Boars is awesome. Dumps your Noble Arms into the grave, so your Sacred Noble Knight or your King Artorigus can just pick them right back up. Next, Merlin. Merlin is awesome. Bonefire for the deck. Basically just tribute him, get your Meddrout, get your Boars, get you whatever you need. Next two monsters are something that not a lot of people run, but I like them. It's normal Vanilla Artorigus with Lady of the Lake. What these two basically, they assist you in getting your Synchro monster out, which is Ignoble Knight of High Launcelin. He's great. I will go into detail more when I actually get into the extra deck. Next, you have triple Meddrout. Meddrout is awesome. Starts the main combo of the deck, which gets you into your rank 5. And then you can just start bashing people's skulls in. Well, I don't know how you bash people's skulls in with a sword. You'd be cutting them off. Next, double Gawain. Adds a little bit of speed to the deck, because if there's normal on the field, you can just special summon him in defense. Most of the time I end up using him as like XYZ fodder to go into like a Heroic Champion Excalibur or a Blade Armor, but it's still useful. Next, you have two Gwynnefer, acting basically as another Noble Arms equipped card. Her effect varies depending on the attribute of the monster. Dark becomes a Catastor, light are immune to card effects. Great. Next on the monsters, you have one Honest. I know that in this format, you can run two, but I only prefer one, since in most situations, Noble Knights, basically if you have your win condition stacked field, you're going to be overpowering a lot of things. 3k is very strong. Sometimes 4k if you have Gallatin equipped to your Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus. So in a lot of situations, I don't necessarily need the Honest. It's just there because it's a light deck and you can run it. Rounding off the monsters, we have two Effect Veiler. Now, Effect Veiler, it's awesome. Effect Negation, early game, end game, whenever you need it. And another thing you can do with it that I wouldn't recommend, but it's still there, is you can just hard summon this when you have, say, any kind of level 4 on the field. Synchro up for your Synchro monster, Ignoble Knight of High Launcelin. Starting off with the spells and traps, mostly spells, is going to be Raigeki and Snatch Steel. Raigeki is self-explanatory. It's great ever since it came off ban list. Just wipe your opponent's field. Snatch Steel is awesome. Steal your opponent's boss monster and just make them cry with it. I have run into lots of situations where people have Snatch Steeled my Artorigus when he's stacked with every single Noble Arms equipped card in my deck. On top of that, I can't even MST the Snatch Steel because my back row is filled with equipped cards. Next, you have your triple MST. It's awesome. Spell, destruction, card, whatever set thing. Can't talk today. But yeah, it's awesome. Run 3 if you can. You could possibly side one out. I don't know, preference. Triple Rhoda. Great, because it gets you your first turn Meddrout a lot easier. Especially when you have 3 of them in the deck. You already got your Meddrout? Okay, I'll just grab a Boars or a Gawain or something. Next, double Lance. I don't run Chalices because I run Breakthroughs. But either way, you're going to be very starved for space to use these. Still, it's nice to have when, say, you don't have your all 5 Noble Arms equipped to your Noble Knight. Say you're missing an Excalibur, and they try to do something like deprison him. Yeah, you have a nice little buffer of protection with Forbidden Lance. Next, 2 cards that I really love. Last Chapter of the Noble Knights. It's great. It saves your ass in a lot of situations. Say your Artorigus went down and yeah, he didn't come back because you weren't able to float into another one. Your attempt was unsuccessful. This basically takes a Noble Arms and a Noble Knight and summons both from the graveyard. So you can take your Meddrout out of the grave with whatever you want equipped to him, and then just go into your rank 5 all over again. So, next, to round out the spells and traps, you have, or just the spells really, you have your Noble Arms. I run 1 Gallatin, because it tends to be helpful that 1k attack boost can really push you past a lot of monsters that would otherwise kill you. For example, you can get an early game Gawain with 2.9k attack. It's hard to beat really early in the game. He's really easy to get out. You can just normal summon him, or you can special summon him if you have another monster in the field. Next, 2 Noble Arms of Destiny. Really great card. Prevents the destruction of your Noble Knights once per turn by battle or card effect. Leads to some stally situations with Noble Knight of King Artorigus, your rank 5, because when he first starts off, he doesn't have much attack. So, set him a nice little buffer before you can get all your cards stacked onto him. 1 Noble Arms Arfugitor. Tends to be kind of a situational card because, say, I don't run Book in this deck, but you could run Book, and you could run Book of Moon and just set there whatever's on the field that you want to get rid of, use Arfugitor, pop it, and in some situations you can just slap a Destiny onto something and just go to town with Arfugitor, pop every single spell they have, and watch as we can't kill the monster. Next, 2 Noble Arms Excalibur is a great card. Prevents your monster that it's equipped to from being targeted by card effects. No Deprisons, no Compulsives, no Caius effects, no Ryza effects. I've had a couple games where people didn't realize what this does, and they've had to end up banishing either their own Caius or sending one of my equip cards home, which I can just re-equip. It's great. Especially watching your opponent take 1,000. Actually, no, never mind. Caius doesn't work that way. I'm just dumb. 2 Caliburn. 500 life points per turn is really good. I've had games where I've gone up to like, what was my record? Around 13k life points. And no, that is not with Upstart Goblin. That is just from the recovery of this. When you're doing your big combo with Meddrout, if you start Meddrout with a Noble Arms Caliburn, you can end up at the end of the turn with a plus 1500 life points. It's pretty crazy. And a lot of times, say they find an out to your rank 5, you'll have a nice, like a 4k, sometimes even 5k cushion to just take beatings before you start going negative in life points, which is great, especially in those longer matches. So for the trap lineup, I really don't run much. I only have 5 traps because, like I kept saying throughout this video, a lot of the time you're just going to have a field of spells and traps that looks something like, it'll look like this. You're just going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this would be Gwynnephar. Just that's your back row. You don't have room for it. So I only really run a few spells and traps, which is your big 3, your Compulse, your Bottomless, and your Solemn. No Torrential, because that would be really not good for this deck. Self-explanatory, really. Go home, stop stuff from happening, banish. The last 2 traps, Breakthrough Skills. Like I said, this is mainly just for early game, where I want to stop stuff from happening. And if I can manage to get them into the grave, it's a lot more useful later game. These 2 you can really side out if you want, or you could throw in Chalices. It's up to you, really. So now let's get into the extra deck. Extra deck. Starting off, I'm going to have Ignoble Knight of High Launcelin. He's a great card. When he's summoned, equip him with a Noble Arms. When he kills stuff, add a Noble Arms or a Noble Knight. It's an awesome card. But he's kind of hard to get into, like I was saying. He's a rank 5, which is where Lady of the Lake and Effect Veiler come in. Lady of the Lake allows you to just revive your normal Artorigus, take it from the grave, and synchro up. The only problem is that Lady of the Lake gets banished when you do so. So a lot of the time I end up just hard summoning Effect Veiler and synchroing with a 4. Next, you have your 2 Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus. He's like the boss monster of the deck. You stack everything onto him, watch as he just slices heads off with those 2 swords. Pops a monster when you detach, and when he dies, he floats. You can float into a Medrow. Only problem with that is he does not revive a Noble Arms. So if you already used the revival effect of the Noble Arms, you can't reattach it to your Medrow that you're going to revive. So make sure you have one in hand at least. Next, 2 copies of Artorigus, King of Noble Knights. Now, this guy, I don't really overlay into him as much as the rank 5, simply because he's not as good in most situations. Unless I'm playing like some kind of pendulum deck, you're not really gonna find much instances where you need to go into it. I guess you could take your Excalibur and banish it from the grave, overlay him over your rank 5 and just use him to generate more materials for this, but not really that useful. Next, Exciton Knight. Really good in this deck because a lot of times especially more now, you're going to find these instances where they find an out to your rank 5 and you're going to have a dead field. Just slap this guy down, even it out a bit. Next, Karen Gorgian. Karen Gorgian is awesome. You can just sit on him and watch as your opponent ends up blowing their own stuff up or killing their own monsters. It's great. Next, Rhapsody and Berserk. Rhapsody works awesome with these decks that we have a lot of today, graveyard decks. Stuff like Shaddoll, stuff like Burning Abyss, banish the Dante, banish their Falco or whatever in the grave. And then his secondary effect, where you attach him to a monster, really doesn't come into play a lot of times because you'd much rather have that effect going, or that slot, going towards a Noble Arms. Next 2 monsters, stuff you should run if you're running a warrior deck. Heroic Champion Excalibur and Blade Armor Ninja. Helps to really push for OTK, something you don't do often in Noble Knights. Really hard to do that actually. The only time you can ever OTK with this deck is if you have a 4K Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus and one of these guys and you attack directly. Not something easy to pull off. I've only done it once. Surprisingly, it was against Burning Abyss. Next, speaking of Burning Abyss, Yevigishki Marrowgeist helps to stop Burning Abyss because if you kill their monsters, you don't go to the grave. They just go right back to deck. Next card, Diamond Dire Wolf. Not really as useful, just kind of stable rank 4 filler because I am too poor to afford a Castell or an Arc. Yep, detach, pop himself, pop something else. Works great. Maestroke helps stall. Basically, if you're just like not drawing into crap, go into this. Sit. Utopia. Another kind of filler card, but it has its uses, just mainly stalling. And lastly, you have Gagaga Cowboy. Cowboy is great. Defense position. Pew pew. I win. GG. That about wraps it up for this deck profile. Stay tuned for more. Like, favorite, comment, subscribe. And if you guys have any specific requests for deck profiles, yeah, just put it in the comments and we'll see what we can do. Thanks for watching.